The object of Taxi Chronicles is to allow real riders with real stories, share their experience and enhance your life. So sit back and enjoy the journey. Morning. Yes, we're back with another rider, another episode. Today we've got an interesting guy, James, in the house. He's an artist, he's a painter and decorator and much more, and he's doing very rich people's weddings, and we're just going to find out what his history is and how he got into it and why he made the decisions he's made in life. So nice to have you here today, James.
Thanks for having me, thanks for driving me.
What kind of person were you when you were at school?
Introverted but extroverted, which was not an easy mix at school. It was an interesting time.
So what times were you extroverted?
When I was comfortable or doing something creative, played the piano a lot and I really enjoyed doing that. I liked singing, so I was always doing that basically instead of work.
Did you ever try and become a singer?
I did. It's very hard to try and become a singer, especially now, because a lot of people want to do it. Have an EP on Spotify and I play the piano, and I sing, and it's quite hard to promote it and get some interest.
You're on Spotify. You're on Spotify now.
Yeah.
What's EP?
It's called Chapman's Pool. The name I go under is Lost James.
What kind of music is it?
It's all piano based. I'd say like alt folk, lo-fi, ballady, about nature, things like that.
Something that you could hear in Game of Thrones kind of thing.
Maybe. That would be the dream.
You'd have made it then. So that's not singing. There's no singing involved.
There's singing as well, yeah. I wrote the song. That's what I loved doing the most.
So I'll tell you what, give us a little rendition. Give us a little...
No.
Come on, James. Give us a little verse or a chorus.
I haven't... This is the first time we've spoken this morning.
Don't worry.
That's the problem.
Listen, we had one of the A&R people
Yeah.
for Sony in the car. I did
Wow.
an interview with him. So when I said any good artists or anything like that, I'm going to throw his way. So you... Now's your opportunity, mate. No pressure.
This is not the morning I was expecting. Can we come back to that and I'll do it? I promise.
Well, you're going to
Let me think while we talk.
What's
I'll
your
think.
favourite song?
Of mine or
Yeah,
of someone
of yours,
else's?
then.
Of mine.
It's one that touched your heart, whether it's a relationship issue or something. This is one that you wrote.
Yeah, most of
really-
them. This is not what I was expecting.
All right, we'll talk about the piano. How long did it take for you to play the piano?
I started when I was 16. I taught myself because I just wanted to play it and I wasn't allowed to have lessons. That's where that began. And then
Why weren't you allowed to have lessons?
it was considered a distraction by my parents.
Really? What did
Yeah.
your parents do?
My dad was in the army.
Oh, what regiment?
I mean, I know that he was in like Oman, Northern Ireland, and I think he went to the Falklands, but I'm not sure if it was during the Falklands because I think it was sometime after.
He was probably sass if he's in Oman, because we
I
haven't
don't
had
know.
a regiment
We
based
never
there.
really talked about it very much, and when we sort of did, I kind of had lost interest in it. That wasn't considered that could be a career, was deemed a distraction from.
Were you good in school?
Well, I wanted to be. I think with most people, I think it depends on the teacher.
Uh-huh.
I think I had a bad lot of teachers who just were coasting towards retirement.
Those
Wasn't into it.
Those old school teachers who've just had enough.
Yeah,
And
they're in their 60s and they're like,
Yeah.
just a couple more years and then
And
we're
then-
good to go.
Then I'm free, no little rough. That kind of. So when you was learning the piano yourself, obviously I'm not sure YouTube wouldn't have been around then. You're about my
No, this was
age.
the 90s.
Yeah, okay. So
The internet was just, I think,
So how did you learn?
how did I
you
learn? Got a piano book and I wrote the notes, the letters of each note under each note, and then I wrote them on the keys of the piano and I went from there.
Quite ingenious.
I mean, I am not by any means a great pianist. I can play a song and I can read music, but I'm not a classical pianist, but I managed to kind of make a sound that kind of tricked people.
When you play, nobody complains.
Yeah, 100%, except maybe my parents at the time.
Well, and then you're good enough.
Yeah, no, and really enjoyed it, and it just an escape. I spent a lot of time doing that when I should have been probably doing my homework or revising, but
Everything you spoke about so far has all been creative. So your homework, whether it's maths, science, geography, English, kind of doesn't really matter. So,
no, it's a longer road, I think. A creative path is definitely a longer path.
but they're needed. Everything's creative
Yeah.
around us, isn't it? From
Yeah.
our clothing to the car to the phone, the buildings, everything's creative. You need people like you who can think outside the box and not just think of this brick sits on top of that brick. Final image.
Agreed, 100%.
So how long would you say it took you before you could play the piano?
Not long. I mean, I remember playing a very simple song, like a music. We had music evenings that our parents would come to and stuff. And a couple of months, perhaps. But this was of constant playing over and over and over again until I memorised it. Not long, but then, you know, longer to learn other things, like, you know, how to make music flow, to be more confident, not look at the keys all the time, to look at the music but not look at the keyboard itself. And that just takes a long time. And then you just remember it. It's more muscle memory after a while.
Did you have any friends who played the piano?
There was a big music school, and they were all sort of classical musicians. They were actually doing exams for it, whereas I wasn't. It was like more of a hobby at the time for me. So yeah, don't think that it was approved of as much as classical renditions. So I was more interested in playing pop songs at the time. So
That being said, who's your favourite artist?
Favourite artist of all time was to be Tori Amos. I don't know if you've ever heard of her. She played the piano, and that's what got me into it. And I mean, it was the 90s, and you know, there was I still think a lot of good music then, a lot of different alternative music. I listened to her album, and it kind of changed the way I listened to music. I think it was, you know, not just simple love songs anymore. It was, you know, complex issues, you know, real stuff.
It's funny, so I was listening to some Motown. I think my daughter was in the car, and I said to her, if you listen to this, everything about this song is original, from the lyrics to the melody to rhythm, all these different things. Don't get that. That's gone.
There is good music, and I still enjoy new stuff. And when I find something new that's, you know, good, it's a joy. But you can hear the borrowed elements across the board to make up new.
Do you think that's because the music industry have got a stranglehold on? I'll give you an example. I was talking to the A&R, and he goes on Instagram and he just listens to anybody who's doing music, and then they grab them and sign them. So even if they don't really want, even if they're not really as good as they could be yet, they're already signed it. And so when they do start to, he'll tell them, carry on and we'll come back. And, and then when they do come out with something that's blowing it up, say, right, come here, and we want this way, you do this and you do that. And so they take control. Big businesses driving the music industry. Not really getting there.
It's harder and harder, I think, for independent artists to find a way. Definitely seems that lots of what you do is not owned by you. Someone else already owns it. And I think, not that I know a lot about it, but from what I've seen growing up being someone who likes music, is it has changed an awful lot. Kind of changing again, like people are more into vinyl now than they were a few years ago. So that I think has made a big difference in how way people listen to music and artwork and things like that, going back to creatives. You know, there was a whole process involved in creating an album, and I felt like died a little bit, and now it's kind of coming back. I get to see all the imagery that goes with it.
So I've interviewed a lot of musicians, and they really hate Tony Blair. So I don't know if you know, Tony Blair came out with that law about...
No, tell me.
Yeah, that bars and pubs couldn't have live music, one person, without paying a tax. So what that meant is that all their talent, like where you find the Beatles and all these creative things, who would come, you know, 3 a.m. and go to Soho, and there's someone who's walk in and see the piano, or the other guy, I got a song to do. Now the owner said, no one's playing music. I'm not paying taxes for you lot. Do you see what I mean? Which totally devastated. I'm surprised you didn't know about that.
No, I mean...
They really rant about it when they get in the car. They're older than me, and I'm in my 40s. So, but they are those kind of live band people. The other thing, I don't know if you found this because you spoke about social media and Spotify, is that everybody's got a chance to prove themselves on YouTube.
Definitely. There seems to be a lot more ways to get in now. You know, before, I think you'd have to really know someone and go and hand a tape in, or your CD.
Your face would have to fit.
Yeah. Whereas now you can kind of create... Instagram is great. It's annoying, but it's great because you can kind of create own little worlds, and you can edit it exactly how you want it to be. You've just got to be able to back that up with the goods. I think that's the other thing. And Spotify as well. It's like, you know, having that platform. It's hard to get the followers, the listens and stuff, and you have to really work at it. But at least you have a platform that pretty much everyone can access. YouTube, the same thing. So accessibility is definitely there. You've just got to be able to beat the algorithms.
So talking about, you're a very creative man. You're going somewhere now to do painting for how many days?
16 days.
You're going to paint for 16 days? That's spectacular. Now, do you put your artwork of what you do on social media?
I do. This project, unfortunately, I have had to sign an NDA, so I can't discuss it too much.
Okay.
And I can't post any photos of it, so that's a bit frustrating.
So wait a minute, when the party's finished and whoever's married, whether it's a royal or whoever, you can't take a photo of your work and post it.
Not this time.
That must be a real kick in the teeth.
Luckily, I'm just a freelancer on this one, so it's not my job. I'm just being employed, so I'm okay with this. I imagine the people whose job it is probably would like to have some proof that it happened.
Yeah. And what is this?
We'll be doing like stone effect painting, so making everything look like an old stone throughout.
So what other kind of artwork have you done?
A lot of stone effect. Marbling, so making things look like marble. I did art at school and then at university, did sculpture. Hated it, but loved being at university and was glad. I was talking to a friend the other day about how glad I was that I went to university in the late 90s, early noughties. Good time to be at university. Yeah, it was good.
But you paint for a living, don't like art, or you hate
I do like art. When I was at university, I don't think I was ready for it. I think I wanted to just kind of find out who I was and become a sort of an adult before deciding what it was I wanted to do for a career. And then looking back now, I'm glad that I continued that creative element after school and it's kind of carried on throughout life, but I wish I'd been told maybe at the time the things that were available to me now. You know, not everyone's gonna...
I really agree with you.
Yeah. Like, you might not be winning the Turner Prize, but you could be, you know, working for big companies doing, you know, set design, making props. You know, there is a plethora of careers out there that you're not necessarily told about because I guess there's maybe a level of
people trying
snobbery,
to keep,
like, you know,
keeping it within their own selves.
Yeah, I think that, you know, there was sort of no guidance. It was like, go create, be an artist, and that's quite difficult.
But maybe those teachers themselves, they don't have the insight to think something like the Yellow Pages. You think that would just be common sense. You'd have a book where facilities would be in. But the Yellow Pages is something, what, from the 80s or 70s?
Yeah.
So what were we doing before that? Do you see what I mean?
God knows.
Yeah. So you think, you look at that, it's like, really? Thought of that now? Turn of the century. It's like that kind of thing. So you just...
I think you find your way, you know. Hopefully you find your way. Hopefully you find what works for you. And it's taken a while, and it's taken, you know, it took moving to London 11 years ago, working some pretty great, but, you know, awful jobs as well.
What were those kind of jobs?
A friend at the time told me that they needed some urns painting. I was a painter and decorator, and they were like, we need some urns painting. Come to London, spend a few weeks working at this florist, and, you know, see what happens. I was very reluctant to move to London.
Where were you coming from?
Bristol.
Okay.
So I'd lived there for 10 years. But nothing was really happening. I'd worked in a bank, just being an office monkey, just doing... I don't even know what I was doing. I can't tell you.
You got paid though.
I got paid, but I found a payslip the other day going through stuff, and I don't know how I survived. But I had a car, I went on holidays, and I went out drinking almost every night, and I'm sure I had a great time. But yeah, so I was like, okay, right, maybe. Then I left that, and I went retrained and did painting and decorating, then became a painter and decorator, and that was fine. That was actually quite good. Hard work compared to sitting at a desk. Much more rewarding. And then, yeah, so the next thing I was in London painting some urns for a wedding, and then I just stayed, and then I got into floristry, and
you haven't looked back.
Yeah, haven't looked back, but I've definitely looked forward in ways of trying to carve out a career for myself.
If you could do it all again, from the music to the artwork to school,
yeah,
what would you change and why and how?
I would definitely have been more confident with things. I wouldn't have listened to people as much and let that knock my confidence. Definitely not worked at a bank. I don't know, I mean, it's hard to say, isn't it, what you would have done differently, because I'm kind of okay with how it's turned out, you know, how things are panning out, even though it's been hard work. But trust my instincts a little bit more and not listen to other people, because usually your gut feeling is right.
When it comes to music and when it comes to the artwork,
yeah,
what would be your word of advice to a young person?
Authenticity. If you try and emulate someone else, be someone else, you're going to get found out in the end. It's going to catch up with you. Take time to find out who you are, but I think authenticity is definitely the key. and then the rest usually follows.
What does the future hold for you?
I wish I knew. Just at the moment, just working hard and trying to sort of get all the pieces into place, especially after, the last couple of years has been extremely taxing for a lot of people, creatives especially. I think that's a common thread throughout. Just getting stuck in and sort of building, hopefully, a sustainable career business.
And the business is going to be in...
I mean, at the moment it's in interiors, doing flowers for interiors. So a lot of sort of artificial trees for sort of quite high-end clients. It's quite niche. It takes time to build up a client base. And in the meantime, the painting is really supporting that. So I'm able to combine two quite creative industries.
Where can people find you on your social media for music and art?
So my artwork page or my floristry account is JamesAlexanderFlowers, and my music account is Lost James.
And is JamesAlexanderFlowers all one word?
Yeah, all one word.
Now the moment has come. Your voice is warmed up.
Okay.
Over to you, no pressure.
Okay, we're nearly at my destination, aren't we? You just drive me around Waterloo until I sing. Okay, I'll start with the first verse and chorus, and then we'll go.
Yeah, it could just be a chorus. It doesn't have to be
Okay. I just wanted to build up, but it's okay.
Build up. If you want to build up, do what you gotta do, mate.
If I could, I would run far from you, far from you. Sometimes I wonder why you look at me that way when you look at me and said, don't look for me, you won't find me. Don't look for me, you won't find me. I belong to the mountains and the deep blue sea. Okay.
That was good.
Thanks.
That was good.
It's hard not singing with the piano.
What's the title of that song?
It's called Chapman's Pool, which is the name of the EP.
Go on.
And all based around a place in the UK called Chapman's Pool, which is in Dorset. And it's a beautiful little rugged cove.
I have to ask, what was going through your mind when you made that song?
When I made that song, I was about to break up with my boyfriend, and I wanted to get as far away as possible. Okay. And I imagined swimming very far. It was very traumatic.
Don't look for me, you won't find me. Yeah, that makes sense.
Finding release and comfort in nature, as we all do.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, thanks a lot for that.
Thank you so
and we
much.
wish you well.
Thank you.
And just remind people where they can find you.
Lost_James and JamesAlexanderFlowers on Instagram.
And to the listeners out there, do not forget to listen to our sister podcast, Africa Investor Stories, where we interview people from around the world who've invested in Africa, and they share what it's really like to invest in the mother continent of continents. We hope that episode enhanced your life. We post an interview every day, as well as vlogging on our social media channels. Don't forget to subscribe to get our latest episode.